cannot overstate the importance of having a watchful eye towards data privacy, data security is in my estimation, the ticking time bomb that really, could have a lasting negative effect on an industry that isn't careful. But the reality is that we're in uncharted territory in terms of the tools that underpin AI, its utilization, its access, the ultimate control, over it. To be honest with you, it is the thing that keeps me up, late at night.
This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, hosted by Krissy Vann. Together, we're uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. Today, I'm joined by Bill Davis, CEO of ABC Fitness, a company powering operations for over 40,000 fitness businesses across more than 100 countries. In this episode, we unpack what's really moving the needle in 2025, from the rise of AI-powered personalization to global expansion strategy, generational shifts in membership behavior, and the evolving regulatory environment. This is a conversation packed with insights for decision makers at every level of scale. Before we get to it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly. I'm your host, Krissy Vann, and this is ATFW. Well, CEO of ABC Fitness, Bill Davis, joining me, no stranger to the podcast. However, this is the first time you've been in my neighborhood, so welcome to Vancouver.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love it. I love it. My funny Vancouver story is, though, I think I've been here. I'm quickly approaching a dozen times since we acquired Trainer Eyes. I've seen the sun once. So what's up with that? Where does the sun go?
I feel so terrible because the minute you leave, and I'm not saying it's you, but the minute you leave, the sunshine is coming out for the long term. But I had to laugh. I saw the Health and Fitness Association, which is why you were here, post a photo from the visit over the last couple of days. And any of the activities, everyone has their toques on. For those that don't get the Canadianism, that is a hat, but a winter hat. But you were all really great sports. Tell me a little bit about why you were here.
Yeah. So as you know, Chris Smith, who is now leading a fantastic brand in fitness world, is also our outgoing chairman of the Health and Fitness Association board. And it's customary that the chairman tends to try to host at least one of the board meetings. So we had a great full day session yesterday. A lot of really exciting developments, both at the HFA, but also the industry, the industry as a whole.
Well, Chris did send me with a message for you. Don't shoot the messenger. Go Big Blue.
Uh-oh. Go Bucks.
He quite literally called me at 8:30 p.m. last night.
Did.
For me to say that. And he goes, you don't know sports. I was like, okay, hold on there. I said, I do. If I'm at the sporting event, you have to tell me what color I'm voting for.
Yeah.
And I said, I get really into it. But he said, you're a huge fan.
Scarlet gray all the way.
There we go. Well, I'm really happy to have you here because we're going to be exploring a couple of topics within the tech space. And you and I were chatting before we got started here. You've been with ABC for about 6 years. And the interesting part of the conversation was how much technology has evolved over 6 years. Obviously, the last conferences we've been over the last 2, you can't go to anything without hearing about AI. I'm curious for you, when you bit into things 6 years ago, was the industry already ahead of the curve in the sense that they knew we'd be where we would be now, or have there been a ton of pivots along?
Yeah, no, I'd say significant pivots, and I describe it, very much as pre-post pandemic reality. When I came into ABC in 2019, there was, I think, real enthusiasm and excitement about the growth that the fitness industry was witnessing. But I would say it was grounded in pretty much continue doing what we are doing. And the pandemic fundamentally changed that. It changed it not only in terms of how technology was thought about and going to be utilized in delivery of both fitness and wellness, but also consumer preferences and consumer expectations. And so I'd say, what I could observe, quite emphatically is that it is a market that needs to be incredibly nimble and adaptive as the emerging technologies just quite frankly, pick up pace.
Well, I can't think of a better individual to have in the seat in regards to knowing where that pace has taken us and where it's going because obviously, being ABC, you have access not just in the States or here in Canada, but global data as to where our industry is headed. And timing couldn't have been more perfect to have you here because the 2025 Wellness Watch just came out on your end. So check ins up 8%, 27% new joins in regards to being up. So, what's contributing to that growth and what examples do you kind of have from top performing clubs that are achieving that?
Yeah, so, the trends are incredibly positive. I'd make 2 observations to just double click on that. You made mention, that's a global movement, and so the reality is that, much of fitness several years ago was thought about very regionalized. So you were talking about North America, you were talking about Asia Pacific, you were talking about EMEA, in very discrete sense. And increasingly, the opportunity is being thought about on a global scale, and brands of all sizes are thinking about, how do they participate in that global movement, at a club or a brand level. So I think that is incredibly exciting. But from an advancement or technology perspective, I would say you have to first acknowledge to my earlier comment around consumer preferences and what impact wearables, biometric capabilities are, the proliferation of personalized training. AI is a big contributor to that, which I trust we'll get into in a lot more detail. And so it's necessitating those clubs that are really honing in on the personas that they are serving, the personalization that they are offering, and flexibility that they're ultimately affording their membership base. In my mind, that's where you're really starting to see the differentiators of those that are doing exceptionally well versus those that are just doing moderately.
Well, and flexibility is a word that brings the next point to the forefront in a big way because you cannot have Gen Z without saying flexibility. And I know that ABC has done a lot of studies really diving into this cohort because they're contributing so greatly to the growth of our industry right now. They make up 16% of new memberships. In regards to the analytics you have access to, let's look ahead to 2027, 2 years from now, 5 years. Where do we see that trajectory growing? Or is there an untapped demographic that we should be nurturing or we're seeing that surge of interest?
Yeah. So our firm belief is that Gen Zs are going to continue to set the pace. And so would not be at all surprised over the next couple of years. We saw that 16% eclipse 20 plus percent. What's fascinating to me is their fitness and wellness IQ particularly high. And so they know what they want, what they're prioritizing in terms of their fitness regimen, wellness disciplines, and they're prioritizing it. And so my strong encouragement, for any operator that serves, even a portion of Gen Z population, be attentive to that and allow them to aid in your R&D, if you will, or your innovation in terms of how you're thinking about, again, to my earlier comment, the personalization experiences for your customer base more holistically.
Yeah, and without a doubt, I mean, I'm someone that spent a lot of time in the social media universe, so it makes a lot of sense as to how they've gotten their education. Whether all of it is factual, that's a whole different conversation because it's really hard to there's a lot of people positioning themselves as experts that aren't necessarily experts, but it makes me really curious about the future in regards to demos that might pop because I think of even myself, I'm a woman in midlife and there's a lot of women in that category now that are talking about perimenopause, menopause, how that impacts their health and wellness in those spaces. And so it's not even necessarily a question, but as we talk, I'm like, it makes me really curious because the more that narrative circulates on social, the more I think it makes people look at themselves as what am I lacking? What can I do about it? And it can drive as a motivator. It's going to be interesting to see
Well,
how the impacts go, you know?
but and you raised a couple really key points. First of all, the availability of information that each of us have as consumers to, again, inform our thinking as to what am I missing? Or better yet, what do I really aspire, to have in the context of my fulfillment of both fitness and wellness expectations, but also the reality that there is a lot of disinformation or inaccurate information. And so our ability to navigate that in a way, and I think this is where club operators and fitness professionals holistically can still serve an incredibly valuable role in um, helping individuals navigate that disinformation and get to a place where what they should be focused on, in fact, are the right things. And so, again, enjoy the information and the access that we are afforded, but be cognizant, that it still requires a lot of scrutiny, if you will, in terms of ultimately its validity.
Well, and even the chat we were having before this, where the industry's positioning itself so well, and it marries your background so well, but that intersection of healthcare and health club was a huge theme 2 years ago. I feel like every conference that was the theme, and you're really seeing everyone bite into that, adopt that, and as a result, we're going to become the thought leaders, the trust leaders from the consumer side. But when it comes to trust, you mentioned personalization and the fact that we're going to chew into AI. And we know nearly 50% of people now use AI-powered fitness and wellness apps daily. Excellent. They're getting more information, more personalized. It's great for us because we know what they want. However, 55% say they're concerned about privacy. So how can clubs balance personalization and trust?
So I cannot overstate the importance of having a watchful eye towards data privacy, data security, because it is in my estimation, the ticking time bomb that really, could have a lasting negative effect on an industry that isn't careful. And so aligning yourself with partners that have a demonstrated commitment to both of those, I think is absolutely paramount. The tools and the information that you allow to, in essence, define your business processes, you as an operator have to be just very attentive to the responsibility that you have in terms of protecting, one's personal information and the aggregation of the data that you have at your effective disposal. In our business, it is paramount. It is above all else, and we work night and day to ensure that we're putting in those proper protections. But the reality is that we're in uncharted territory in terms of the tools that underpin AI, its utilization, its access, the ultimate control, over it. And so it's in that spirit, I would encourage anyone that is going kind of headstrong into AI holistically that you ensure that you're prioritizing, privacy, security, in the right way.
Without question, because ticking time bomb's the right way to put it. And if that does transpire, you can't just get that trust back.
It's the thing I'll be honest with you, it is the thing that keeps me up, late at night. In our business, with what we're entrusted in or with from an information perspective, it is the thing that, I talk incessantly about to our organization that there is no, in essence, second chance. You've got to, uh, ensure that we're prioritizing it in everything that we do, but as we introduce AI capabilities into our own business, the sensitivity to the unique vulnerabilities that it represents is.
Well, and it's keeping you up at night, and apparently, it's also keeping some consumers up as well. So only 2% of boomers trust AI apps compared to 33% of Gen Z, which makes sense because obviously the Gen Zs have grown up inundated with screen time and basically volunteering all their personal information away for the most part. But should clubs think about building different AI driven experiences for different age groups? My mom actually comes to mind with this one because she has always had a huge distrust with technology. She didn't grow up understanding it. And as it's evolved, she's never decided to learn how it works, and therefore it's a fear unlocked every time. So how do you manage that when you are introducing some of these tools within your health club?
Got it. Yeah, I think being attentive to the different preferences and, different biases is prudent, but I also would say I often think about it in the context of, the proliferation of smartphones, just a few short decades ago. Um, it became that intuitive that even the most, or least sophisticated, technology user, saw its inherent benefits. And I think AI, in all sincerity, has the ability from a in consumer or from a member perspective to have a similar effect. But before you even get there, from an operator perspective, there's so much utility that we're excited about, we're focused on, that will make the whole life cycle journey for their members inherently easier and club operators that much more effective. It starts with the very beginning. Think about the basic activity of new member acquisition and the tools that are emerging around making your target, uh, based on your modality, based on your target demographics, geographic, distribution and the like, that much more precise and inherently that much more effective. And that's just one very small sliver of an example. I could go all the way through, the full life cycle, all the way through retention, where you could see the power of these tools having that, quite frankly, are behind the scenes and not visible to the consumer. The consumer adoption, utilization, and how it's gonna influence their, fitness journey, in my mind, is a whole nother level of conversation and potential excitement.
Absolutely, and it is exciting because it is changing the game for so many operators. So let's talk about exactly that because you work with so many clubs out there. So for those that have fully adopted, it's actually funny because I remember when I was first starting in this industry, and I can't remember whether it was the Fitness Technology Summit or Beyond Active, but regardless, the sentiment was essentially that the industry was notoriously known as late adopters when it came to technology. And obviously, we're flipping the script in rapid succession. But for those that did decide to say, hey, I see this coming and I want to place all these tools within my operations, do you have any good examples of a health club or operator that saw a lot of lift from embracing this from the get go?
Yeah, I would stay with a kind of a concept similar to what I was describing on the new member acquisition. We've developed, capabilities that are all AI powered, specific to, retention risk identification. And so imagine, and we're leveraging, somewhere around 15 different unique, attributes in terms of member behavior as a complement of, are they more likely than not going to, attrit from a club? That's interesting, but it's more important, what do you do with that information? And so the capabilities not only identify, here's your at-risk membership base, but more specifically, which also is leveraging AI-enabled, capabilities, is how do I engage with that member increasingly in an automated way to actually offer programming that is specifically of interest to them, or incentives that particularly motivate them, to consider, re-engagement of sorts. And we're seeing, just in that specific functionality, 4 or 5x return in terms of its impact, when fully adopted. And so, it gives me real promise, real excitement in terms of, and it wasn't, in all fairness, it was incubated within the 4 walls of ABC a year ago, via our annual hackathon. So this is where we engage our entire organization, to do smart experimentation, and it goes over a course of a week's time, and this was, the proof of concept was developed, and it was so powerful, we brought it into our product roadmap instantaneously, and it was something that we announced at the HFA conference, formally back in March.
It's a little record scratch here. I love this. So obviously our audience
They're a group of leaders. So tell me about the hackathon, how it operates, and when that was brought to fruition.
Yeah, it's a technology company, we're obviously, surrounded by a bunch of just phenomenal, technicians who really, quite candidly, geek out over the prospect of new emerging, trends. So, literally, we had actually had planned our very first hackathon in 2020. For obvious reasons, that was deferred. So, since '21 up to today, we've run an annual hackathon and it's company wide. So it's not just our product organization, it's people in finance, it is people in our people organization, it is our support organization. And the overarching aim, it could be centered around innovation or improved process, or it could be like the example I cited, improvement or advancements around feature functionality. And we have a lot of fun with it. So teams are created, and typically I think we're up to about, I don't know, just around 50% of the organization that volunteer to participate, but it's available to everybody. Typically, team is 12 or so individuals.
And are they
Individuals.
and are they generally from the same department, or you get to mix and
A
collab with?
little bit of both.
Nice.
But, the aim is develop a concept, put a pitch together, and then, we have folks that volunteer, and I always volunteer to be a judge. And so these are actually judged as a competition, and we have award prizes, and, ultimately, a commit that the top, selected, ideas will actually put into, operations or production.
It's so brilliant. As a creative myself, it's one of the things I love the most when I am able to position an idea to somebody that's completely unrelated to my field necessarily, because the way their thinking brain works is completely different from mine. So that level of ideation, smart. There's a reason why you're ahead of the curve, and also on a hearty appetite of acquisition and growing at ABC. And that kind of leads me in. You've acquired GlowFox. ABC now supports fitness businesses in over 100 countries. India, I know, was big news recently. So, which international markets are you seeing the fastest growth in
Yeah.
right now?
This will say, because I marvel at this fact, ABC in 2019, we had permission to operate in one country, and that was the United States. That was it.
Really?
Yes, yes. So technically, we had a little bit of business in Canada, and I think 1 or 2 clients in Mexico, which were, US-based, enterprises that went down there and asked us to follow them. But for all intents and purposes, our business was exclusively, US. And to my early comment about what we're witnessing in terms of the fitness movement globally, um, I'm just blown away by the global potential. So, where we are focusing in the near term, really 2 regions, that are net new, but a third that we've been focused on for the last couple of years. I'll start there. We're having, phenomenal success in Latin America. So, we are very proud of our, penetration, in terms of customer, support in Brazil, and we're taking that into, emerging or not emerging, but, new markets in Latin America for us, in particular, Mexico, we're having a lot of success in Colombia, and Panama are the 3 where we're spending a lot of time and see just some exciting growth, potential. More recently, we've made, strategic bets, from a resource perspective in, EMEA, and I would say UK, Ireland, Western Europe, specifically, and then even more recently with our announcement of onboarding Emmett Williams, who I just could not be more excited about his arrival, but in Asia Pacific. We see just tremendous, opportunity. A funny or not even funny, but a really interesting story, uh, that I would share. I had the pleasure of being in India about a month and a half ago. As you intimated, we have committed to, standing up operations in Hyderabad, and we're now up to just under 200, resources there in less than 6 months. So it's going very fast.
Been not busy at all.
Well, yeah. But here's the interesting, so I met with, one of the largest fitness brands there, phenomenal success story. They were founded in 2019. Few stats that they shared with me, it's a brand called Cult Fitness. They said, obviously, India, population 1.5 billion. Membership, club membership, it's less than 1% of the population, so about 15,000,000, club membership, and it's literally on fire there in terms of, what's happening in terms of fitness as a priority, but access to fitness clubs, and it gives you just a lot of hope, a lot of promise in terms of what's possible, there. But, that's a little bit further down the road for us, but I would tell you Latin America, the western part of EMEA and Asia Pacific are the 3 areas that we're spending a lot of time.
Yeah, it's wild to me to think. I mean, we were discussing beforehand. I've only been on this B2B side of the industry for 2 years and change, and obviously ABC Fitness has always been a leader in the space, and we know that there are rumblings of a lot that are playing in the SaaS space. So, you've been at the ship for 6 years. What do you think set ABC apart in regards to the fact that you have seen this incredible growth just continue on such a trajectory?
I'd a couple of things, and I applaud. I think there's a lot of players, participants that do a really good job of similar capabilities as ABC, and so I want to acknowledge that. But I think where I really am motivated to see us differentiate is in two material respects. First of all, is our unabiding commitment to driving integrated solutions or capabilities, and that integration becomes important from a club operator perspective and a member point of view because it ultimately lends itself to a truly seamless experience. And I confess to everybody, ABC is not 100% where we want to be. We have made phenomenal strides, but we're still very much in the midst of that journey, and it lends itself to a business that is through that integrated offering capable of investing a disproportionate amount of our revenues back into R&D and in that innovation. So that unabiding commitment to integrated capabilities, I would say one. But it's the second is we've been very intentional to ensure that we're building capabilities that could truly scale on a global basis. And the reality is that these brands are they're thinking about the opportunity cross border, and historically the chief impediment for technology companies such as ours has been the localization of basic workflows, but also getting the payment processing capabilities that tend to be very localized as well, kind of figured out. We're taking that challenge head on because at the end of the day, if I'm a club operator and I want to be in 3 or 4 countries, what's important to me is that there's an ability to run those clubs in a consistent manner and have what I affectionately refer to as a single pane of glass that I can look through and understand how those clubs are operating. And I think there again, we've been blessed to be able to invest in a way that's building that global capability.
Well, and I remember one of our early conversations was more the member side and wanting that frictionless experience. And we're seeing a ton of M&A activity taking place right now, a lot of global expansion from some big players. And similarly, how great if you're able to have a frictionless experience on the other side when you're looking to grow those operations, because there is so much nuance that not that many years ago would have been 10 times or 20x times more complex than it is today. So you're biting into that head on, but you also have brought on tools like Trainer Eyes, Gym Sales, and Fitness BI under one roof. So how are you making sure the experience is seamless for your enterprise clients? Because that's a big umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah, big secret about ABC, that, again, you're gonna hear us talking more and more about is this commitment to a singular integrated, platform. And so I often describe, what we do having 3 discrete but incredibly important interrelated layers to it. The foundation of ABC and what we offer our customers is on the backbone of our payments or commerce platform. And that is the lifeline of these clubs because that's in essence how they monetize their membership and revenue streams, which we are very much a central part of. The second layer is that member operations layer. This is everything from new member acquisition, the check-ins, the class participation, to personal trainer engagement, to tracking of your meal plans, to your fitness regimen. Everything that interacts with that member is there. And then the third layer is that data and reporting, which gives that club operator that unique insight to manage their clubs as effectively as they possibly can. And we are on a beaten path to where those three layers are singular across all the markets that we serve. So we're increasingly not talking in terms of Trainerize or GlowFox or Ignite, but ABC's integrated solution that is really all about driving that integrated, seamless, frictionless experience. Its benefit, again, from the operator's point of view, is you can see end to end from a customer life journey and or business life cycle, the opportunities of our insights that allow you to optimize your business as best you can. That's the intangible benefit. From the member perspective, you're not feeling as though you're dealing with disparate apps or disparate, intersects. It's all integrated as one. In fact, I was just to tie in the AI, if I may, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I think this is, just imagine in the not distant future, each and every one of us having our own virtual personal assistant and you having the opportunity to, in voice activated manner, say, please schedule my personal training session for next Thursday morning, at 10 a.m. And that instantaneously happening. And you're not having to go into your personal club's, mobile app to do that scheduling or what have you. It's voice activated. It's parts of your personal virtual assistant that's in essence doing it on your behalf. Well, our capabilities need to be able to accommodate that, and club operators are going to be able to need to accommodate that type of experience because you as a consumer are expecting it. And that's not crazy speak if you just realize where the technology is advancing and the rate at which it's advancing. That's going to be here before we know it. Going to be
I wholeheartedly believe it. When we go back to the demographics talks about who your consumer is, Gen Z grew up with things to a certain degrees, but people I think keep thinking Gen Z is so young. I mean, they're the ones that are starting families, they're getting married right now. We have our alphas that have grown up with a whole other level of understanding that's far beyond what you and I have been exposed to. And so to your point, I think the level that they will be demanding from us will happen rapidly and not quietly. I mean, the only thing that will happen quietly is if you don't adapt, your business is gonna go quietly into the distance and be an afterthought. But I think now more than ever,
There are three Gen Zers. I could not agree with you more. Their tolerance for any sort of inherent inefficiency, it's zero. It is absolutely zero.
it's zero.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and in fairness, they have had instant gratification with so many different elements of their life because they just happened to be born at a time that that was falling into the palm of our hands, and they have less of a fear base over it. I mean, I think having healthy skepticism when there's new tools is always appropriate, but for themselves, they've been proven their life gets more efficient over time with these tools, so why wouldn't they adopt them? I'm curious though, we talked a little bit about data and the importance of the protection of it. Let's talk a little bit as we're sort of in that future proofing mode for businesses. As more countries introduce stricter data rules, what's the takeaway for North American operators who want to stay ahead of potential regulation?
Yeah, I think it does start with the partners that you're aligning with, and I mean that in as an objective as a manner possible, ensuring that you're partnering with folks that are prioritizing that on your behalf, because The reality is, and we talked about this extensively yesterday at the HFA, board meeting, much of this is happening at a state level. There is certainly dynamics at a federal level, but being in tune at that state level is more than a full-time job unto itself. And you're, as a practical matter, expecting each individual operator to kind of have the wherewithal and the resources to be able to do that and do that effectively, I'd say is unfair. So it lends itself to who you're partnering with, and are they making that requisite investment on your behalf at scale that is leverageable. That being said, you have to be attentive to the fact that we are in a very dynamic, very fluid, regulatory environment right now, and so having a watchful eye in terms of, that change, I do think you have a responsibility, again, be in tune with that. The, I think as a practical matter, we have as an industry an opportunity to take more of a leadership role. And this too was a key part of conversation yesterday in terms of shaping that because you could take it even some of the uh, realities around tariffs, that are taking place now. Um, there's a lack of an appreciation for our industry in terms of um, broad-based policies that are having unintended consequences in terms of unnecessary restriction. In the particular example we were talking about yesterday was, the prohibition of or impact on, dumbbells. Dumbbells, as a practical matter, don't represent any sort of security or threat, but rather, but in fairness, there's a lack of appreciation of when some of these policies are set. So point being is the industry, I think, as a whole, has an opportunity to develop an active voice in that policymaking effort as well, which I could say, on behalf of HFA and others that are, committed to doing that. There's real intent and real opportunity and optimism in the role that we could play.
I'm just curious before I have 2 more future-proofing questions for you, but the fact that you were sitting with a group of minds in the industry, the board all coming together, what were other some of the topics of conversation that were really at the forefront when it comes to what the industry needs to tackle in this moment to future-proof itself?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the consolidation and the influx of capital that is come. There's been some notable transactions, very recently that signify the maturity and expectation of our industry is only going up. And so with that, the insights, the to your point of sophistication around security, compliance, data management, and the like, it is only going to intensify. And so as an industry, we need to be prepared for that. And again, I don't think it's realistic to think that any individual operator is going to have the wherewithal or the resources to do that on their own, is to do that on their own. So where coalitions of the industry and or dependency on valued partners, I think, becomes an important conversation. So we talked a lot about those realities and what's going to follow there. We talked a lot about state of play in Washington. The FIT Act is kind of weighing in the balance right now. Senate cut it out, and so I think there's an admission or acknowledgement that it may find its way back in, but it's also, I think, a moment in time where we as an industry, need to be prepared to turn the page and start to focus on other, significant legislative priorities that I think, again, as an association, have an opportunity to play an active leadership role.
So obviously those are some ways that we can future-proof ourselves in regards to data regulations and really being an advocate of this industry so that we aren't impacted by policy that lawmakers may not have a realization have a huge detriment to the growth of a rapidly growing industry that ultimately gives jobs and helps the economy on such a large scale. And not only that, changes the health of Americans exponentially. We know that we're ground zero for that. So you and I could talk forever about why we're the right industry because before we even started the conversation, you were asking me about, getting involved and what surprised me. And the thing that I love most is that we all truly have a foundation that's rooted and has a belief in what we do and its ability to make change because it does in our own lives. But that's not the only thing that's changing. We're changing the way that we're thinking about how the industry operates. And that means a lot of operators are exploring new avenues. GLP-1 being a great example of that, the longevity conversation. So, how is ABC kind of pivoting as these new revenue streams are coming in to help support operators as they explore and grow into these new
Yeah.
avenues?
I actually think GLP-1s are a good thing for wellness, fitness, as a whole. I have, several friends that have availed themselves of that therapy, and the impact has been absolutely, life-changing for them. But everyone that's engaging, with that therapy recognizes that there's still a need to maintain and ultimately develop necessary healthy habits to, continue to reap the benefits that it helps you achieve in the first instance. So, um, in that spirit, I'll cite a couple examples of where we see real opportunity to help. So as we support literally over 50,000 personal trainers that are individual or sole proprietors, but a whole lot more embedded in our club management solutions, and so we are actually curating specific programming, uh, leveraging AI tools here again that are geared towards folks that are availing themselves of GLP-1 therapies, proper maintenance and/or strengthening programs again, yield the sustained benefit that they're ultimately after. We announced a recent partnership with MyFitnessPal, and this is all about meal tracking. And so what's central to that partnership is recognizing habit forming and proper meal preparation, all geared towards maintaining that desired outcome as well. So those are just two tangible examples where we see offerings that are specifically geared towards that universe of individuals that are desirous of developing healthy habits as they get the jump start from the therapy itself.
And I wanna jump on what you said just initially there, because when GLP-1s entered the arena, I was really skeptical. I've shared the story many times, but my dad was a type 1 diabetic. This obviously initially developed for type 2, and I just had a certain feeling about it, and in my head, I was like, if you don't have to take a pharmaceutical medication and there's lifestyle options, I morally, ethically, and really it's none of my business because it's not my lifestyle choice, but I did feel some type of way about it. And I've had so many great conversations from the researcher side. Obviously, I've had individuals on to talk about where they're adopting it in gyms and health club operators and hearing their perspectives. And my perspective has completely changed even over the last year and a half. And one of the best instances of seeing that come to life and seeing conversations I've had on the B2B side enter my actual life sphere. I've had a friend since grade 6. She's always struggled with her weight. We're now entering our 40s in a few short years. She decided to take that step for herself. And I visited her in February. And it was so interesting without prompting from me or anything like that to hear her excitement, number one, about her supplement regimen. She'd never done that before. And she's like, oh, I'm taking these greens and I have this protein. And to hear her genuine excitement over these lifestyle changes. And the second one, which is the big one, for her to talk to me about working out. She's like, I've started doing weights. And it wasn't even necessarily because she knew about the health ramifications if she doesn't on that type of medication. It was because this change in herself genuinely sparked this in her to want to have an appetite for it. And I'm getting messages, is it normal to be this sore? If I do this amount, can I still work out? And so it was really neat to see that in real time. And I think that was my final click to be like, I get it. And we're the right people to play in this space because, to my point earlier, we're so passionate about it for ourselves. When you see just one person get it, we know the ripple effect. Because the minute you have your fitness in line and you choose that for yourself, that is a lifestyle example for every other component of your life. You're choosing you.
Well, I love hearing stories like that because I share in the sentiment as you do, and if it serves to be a catalyst for putting an individual on a healthy path, I'm all for it.
Yep.
I am all for it. And what I'm really marveling at very recently, mind you, is people's willingness to be very open about
Yes.
its utilization. 6 months ago, it was a secret. I mean, you kinda like, "Something's different about this person," and you didn't wanna ask. People are increasingly, freely offering the fact that they've availed themselves, and they're feeling better about who they are and this pursuit of a healthier fit, way of living, and so I applaud it, and if it's, obvious we could get into a whole socioeconomic and affordability, and my hope is that it could in fact be democratized in a way that more and more people could avail themselves of it, because I don't in any way wanna see it become a privileged, capability or offering, but, I'm encouraged by its potential.
Before we move on, I just want to touch on because I could not agree more. I just said this the other day in regards to the openness, because not just that friend, but I've had two others in recent times come to me and exactly that. They're celebrating this lifestyle change. And all I thought in my head, it's no different than Botox.
Yeah.
You remember when Botox entered the market? I mean, you could tell this just probably should be some wrinkles there, and there's not. And people would hide, and now it's a normal part of people's skincare routine. They're excited to talk about where they go and throw around recommendations, and it's happening very quickly around GLP-1s, which is massively advantageous because they will be our spokespeople. So the opportunity is huge, but when it comes to opportunity, I want to end off on one question here. If you had to place one big bet on technology that most operators are not thinking about yet, but will be essential by 2030, what do you feel it might be and why?
In all candor, I think that technology is innovating and evolving so rapidly. In all sincerity, I think what is going to have an impact in 2030 is not yet even conceived. So I'm not dodging your question. I will,
Five.
but I really genuinely believe the pace and rate of change from a technological perspective, it's more rapid than that. But I'll share a quote. I don't know how people feel about, Jamie Dimon. I as a leader, I like him a lot, and he said something very recently that resonated with me, and he said, "AI is the worst it will ever be." And what he meant by that is it's still very much in its infancy, and I do sincerely believe that, and so I think it's utilization and how club operators are going to operate, are just we can't even fully grasp, the changes that could be, possible 3, 4 years from now. I think it can move that fast. I often say this, to be a good club operator, you have to be really good at 2 things. 1, attracting and retaining members, but equally good at attracting and retaining employees, because these are labor-intensive businesses, and I tend to think about AI in the context of both of those proficiencies, and I think AI has the potential of having outsized impact on both. And just to, because we've spent a fair amount talking about members, just to spend a minute on the employee base. I think there's degrees of efficiency and automation that are going to really revolutionize, what fitness and how we consume it is. I will say, to me, it starts and ends with personalization, and this is gonna be so specific to Bill Davis or Krissy or whomever the individual is, that I for sure, to my earlier comment of a personal assistant that is with you, I think that personal assistant's gonna have an influence in your physical regimen as well.
Well, CEO of ABC Fitness, Bill Davis, it is always a pleasure. It's always been a pleasure working with your teams and any interactions I've had. Thank you so very much for carving out time here in Vancouver.
Really appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun catching up, and hopefully before I leave here later today, I get to see the sun.
Or maybe go and maybe the sun will come back. Nothing personal.
I'll get a certain altitude and it'll appear.
Thank you.
You've just listened to the All Things Fitness and Wellness podcast, hosted by Krissy Vann. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry insiders and influencers. Together, we're on a mission for everyone to live a life fit and well.